thought about having this cool intro. Nah, maybe later. But for now, you are listening to My Introvert Thoughts. Hey. Welcome back to another episode of My Introvert Thoughts with me, Skorpyen. Hey. How are you doing? How are you feeling? I hope you are feeling well. Hope you are feeling good. Hope you are feeling blessed and all of the things. And most importantly, I hope that you are treating yourself well. Like really, treating yourself well. I hope you are looking after yourself, making sure you're getting enough rest, enough good foods, enough sunlight, enough exercise, and all of the other things that you need. Enough affection if that's what you need. If you need a hug, ask for a hug. Sometimes I think people don't necessarily feel like it's appropriate to ask for a hug. It depends on who you're asking for a hug. I think they think they're invading on your space, or that you think that you are invading on other people's space as an introvert. I think they welcome those hugs. Depending on who it is. Don't be going around the workplace asking people for hugs. Don't do that. Don't get yourself called down to ER now. Don't cross anybody's boundaries or anything like that. I am not advocating for that at all. I am not encouraging that. But your families and friends, just say, hey, I like a hug. I haven't seen you in a while. I need a hug today. Today isn't going so great for me. I had a long day, or this happened. Or it could just simply be that you need a hug. You just need a hug. A hug a day keeps the doctor away. I don't know that that's actually true, but it sounds good, right? You know, the saying, an apple a day. Well, in this case, a hug a day. Okay, get your hugs in. Make sure your emotional and mental well-being is intact. So for me, I am doing good. I am feeling good. I'm feeling well. I'm trying to get my exercise back up, move around a little bit. These bones popping and whatnot, I don't like that sound. I don't like the pop, 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 pop. Like the Rice Krispie treats, snap, crackle, and pop. I don't like that. I don't want that for myself. So I am trying to get all of those things under control and fix it. But besides that, I wanted to ask you a question. Are you one of the people that avoid people that you know, like in grocery stores or department stores? I am. I am. It depends on what mood I'm in. Now, if I'm feeling okay and feeling social, then I might not, depending on who it is. But sometimes I'm going to avoid people. I'm going to try to bend that corner before somebody sees me that I know. Sometimes I just want to go to the grocery store. Sometimes I just want to go shopping. And I don't want to be social. Just because we're out in public doesn't mean we want to be social. Sometimes we want to go out in public and enjoy our own company and do things by ourselves and just enjoy that. Enjoy being out. Enjoy seeing things. Enjoy buying new things, and we don't necessarily need companionship during that time. We don't need a friend to go with us. We don't need to be social during those times. So I have found myself bending a corner, acting like I don't see someone. And sometimes I really don't see people, but sometimes it's a thing where I just don't have the capacity, or I don't feel like interacting. I still may enjoy you as a person. Doesn't mean I dislike the other person. It just means I don't feel like interacting with that person at the moment. Just simple as that. No harm, no foul. No foul. But not everybody understands that. And that can be taken personally, and it's not a personal thing. It's just a thing where we don't want to socialize. We want to shop in peace. We may want to run and get a coffee in peace. We may want to eat dinner or lunch or even breakfast in peace. We don't necessarily want to talk. And so I have done that. I have bent a corner or hid somewhere or hurried up and checked out because I didn't want to have the social interaction. And sometimes you run into people that like to talk and talk a lot. And sometimes you run into people that are very loud when they talk, especially like old family friends or something. You know, we all have these family friends that like to ask you stuff that isn't quite any of their business, and you have to kind of like check them a little bit. But at that point, they've already asked the question, and sometimes they've asked the question loudly, and you're like, oh my God, I wish you hadn't seen me today. Or I wish I hadn't seen you. Or I should have stayed at home. Something told me to stay at home. Yeah, we've all had those interactions. And sometimes we just don't want to be bothered. So if you have an introvert person and they avoid you in public, it don't mean they don't like you. It just means they're not in the space to talk with you that day. Okay? Just not in the space. Okay. Now, to get into what I wanted to talk about today. Let me just tell you. So for years, I have periodically, at least once a year, Googled like the top 10 jobs for introverts or something, or careers for introverts or something like that, or some variation thereof, right? And I always get something pretty similar. It's almost like copy and paste. It's like every site is copy and pasting the same jobs and saying the same thing, almost verbatim sometimes. So recently I decided to do so again. And the first result this time was kind of surprising to me. It was kind of surprising. The first result that I came up with that was in my feed on Google was from Coursera. If you don't know what Coursera is, this is not an ad. They didn't pay me. But Coursera, holla at your girl. It is a site that offers free courses from major universities and colleges, and the courses are amazing. I have taken a few courses and I enjoy them. They're like 6-7 week courses, sometimes shorter than that, depending on at the speed in which you work. And I'm not going to go into this whole spiel for Coursera, but nevertheless, they're informative and they're good. So they came up and I was like, hey, let me tap on here. And if I'm not mistaken, instead of it telling me the 10 jobs, it told me 22 jobs that are recommended or great careers, jobs for introverts. And this is the difference. This is the difference in what I've typically been seeing. This particular pop-up was breaking down that most introverts have the same things in common. It's like a common introvert thing, right? We have these characteristics, skills, what have you. And I'm going to share them with you, right? And so those things that they listed that introverts typically have in common are empathy, analytical thinking, creativity, attention to detail, building relationships, adaptability, listening, independence. Now you may say, okay, that's all well and good. Yeah, I can agree with those things. That's one thing that is different, because out of all the other sites I have seen, they have never taken the time to list that introverts tend to share these characteristics. Although we are not all the same, we're not a monolith, we still share similar characteristics, right? And based upon those characteristics, this site listed jobs that could be great for introverts, jobs that they recommend that introverts tap into. Now, I will say that I don't know about some of these, but we will talk about some of these. Just a few moments, right? Because I wanted to share it with you because I thought it was interesting, because maybe you, like me, are interested in these things and just like to know. I want to know all things introvert. So when I see something about introverts pop up, I'm going to look at it. I'm going to read it because I want to know. And then based upon what I have experienced and what I know, what I've researched, I'll see whether I agree with it or whether I don't, right? And so why not share these things with you? And so for empathy, one of the characteristics that they say introverts share, empathy. And there are two jobs that I remember from that, and that they recommended to tap into empathy. If you're an introvert that's heavily empathetic or want to tap into your empathy, and that's a driving force for you within the job market, they say social worker and a physician assistant. Now, the social worker starts at like $50,000 a year. That's the average, right? $50,000 a year. And for me, I was like, social worker, an introvert as a social worker, it could work. But also, if you're an introvert that really wants to work somewhere where you don't have a lot of human interaction, I don't know if social worker is good, because social workers usually don't do a lot of solo work as far as not interacting with folk. And that's kind of some of my concern with some of the jobs that they listed here, some of the careers, that a lot of it doesn't take into consideration the solo work of not having to interact a lot with folk. So social worker, yeah, it could tap into your empathy. So can physician assistant, which is like $120,000 a year. Okay. But you're going to be interacting with folk. Tap into your empathy, but you're going to be interacting with a lot of folk. Another one is our analytical thinking. And so for that one, they have data scientists starting at $100,000 a year. Now, this one I can kind of see really tapping into solo work, except for when you're reporting to your results, your findings, or what have you in meetings. But most of the time you're doing research, you're analyzing data. So that one might be a good one.
Hey there, are you enjoying this episode? Well, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you are notified of all future and bonus episodes. Okay, now back to this episode.
Also, creativity. That's another. And under that one, they have social media manager starting at $62,000 and a digital designer, which is $78,000 a year. Both of those I think are great. great for solo work and also for creativity. I think they're onto something with these two. Social media manager, you're going to interact with people on social. Is that draining? It can be. And we'll talk about that at a later time because I wanted to tap into that one this season. But I think it can lend to doing a lot of solo work. You're working almost at your own pace. You're setting your schedule in a sense, depending on what company you work for. Digital designer, you're interacting with clients to make sure they get their needs met with design. I think this one was a good one. Okay, now for attention, right? Because we pay attention. We see a lot. Attention to detail. They have accountant and industrial machinery mechanic. Accountant for sure. As far as tapping into solo work, because you are going to have the space to pay attention to those numbers when you're messing with people money. And if you don't want to be bothered, accounting is it. Okay. Industrial machinery mechanic. I don't know much. I don't know much about that. I can't speak on that. But I can see how it would, and with the attention to detail. You want to make sure you get it right. Now, here's another one. Building relationships, right? They have health services manager and a veterinarian, both of which you're making over $100,000 a year. I can see how you would build a relationship with health services and veterinarian. You're having to repeat clients. You're dealing with sick individuals or animals, and you're tapping into your empathy too, especially with the veterinarian part. So I can see those. As far as building relationships and tapping into empathy, but as far as solo work and being alone, probably not so much. Not so much at all. You're definitely going to have to interact. And when I'm saying solo work, I mean not having to interact with people a lot. So I just want to make that clear. Now, the next one is adaptability. And under there, they have project management and help desk technician. Yeah. You're going to have to be able to go with the flow. You don't know what your day is going to be like. You don't know how much alone time you're going to have, how much interaction you're going to have throughout the day. You don't know. These are professions where you're going to have to kind of be able to go with the flow. For sure. Solo work? No, not so much. Listening, that's another trait. They have lawyer, psychologist, interpreter, all of which absolutely true. Absolutely true for the listening aspect. The lawyer is around 128,000 per year, psychologist 80,000, interpreter 49,000. And you're definitely going to be tapped into listening to make sure that you're understanding what your client is saying, that you're interpreting properly, that you're listening, that you're meeting their needs, that you're helping them. Absolutely. Now, independence. They have commercial pilot at 135,000 a year and a writer at 78,000 a year. Independence as a commercial pilot. I guess I could see it. As a writer, absolutely. The writer is the one true one as far as independence goes. Solo, you could tap into your empathy. You could tap into all things here. Being a writer, you can tap into your empathy, your analytical, your creativity, your attention to detail. You kind of building relationships with your listener, with your readers, your audience. The adaptability, the listening, independence. I think the writer takes the cake. Writer and accountant. What do you think? Let me know what you think about this list because I enjoyed this one. I enjoyed this pop up, this search that popped up for me with Coursera because, like I said, usually when I search top jobs for introverts, careers for introverts, career recommendations for introverts, it's usually a copy and paste and a lot of the same thing. And I don't think a lot of thought really goes into a lot of the list. But this one I enjoyed, and I think they took time to try to tap into who introverts are, and also knowing that we value other things other than solo work too. I know I centered solo work in this, but I appreciate the list for understanding that we value other things other than independence and solo work. I can appreciate that so very much. And the thought that went into this, the detail that went into this. So if you have a moment, tap in. If I might share the link in the episode description for this episode so you guys can tap into it if you'd like, and let me know what you think. Did you agree with this list? Did you agree with the traits that they share, that they say we all share? Let me know by emailing the podcast, myintrothoughts@gmail.com. And yeah, if I may even share some of what you thought this episode in the next episode or the upcoming episodes. Yeah, let's move on. Now we're to one of my favorite parts of the podcast where I share a personal story. Usually I share one of my personal stories, but today I am sharing a personal story that I found on Reddit that I thought was it tickled me a little bit. Because it's something that I would probably do. And let me say that if you would like to share a personal story, please email the podcast, myintrothoughts@gmail.com, and in the subject line, put personal story. And if you would like to remain anonymous, sign it anonymous, okay? And I may share your story here on the podcast. Let me know. Let me know. Okay, but let's get into this story. I'm going to read it to you. And I was tickled by it a little bit because, again, it sounds like something that I would do. Okay, you ready? Okay, it says, in college, I had to attend an out-of-town conference with my classmates as part of the requirements for a course. My professor had booked a block of rooms at the hotel where the conference was held, and people were going to put 3 to 4 guys or girls to a room and split the cost. My classmates had a bunch of socializing and bar hopping planned, which sounds like my idea of a living hell. Also, all of them carpooled together in groups. I honestly would have rather walked barefoot across a mile of Legos than to be held hostage in a car for 4 hours with people I barely know. A few people asked if I wanted to carpool with them and what room I was in, and I said, "Oh, thank you so much. I'm actually staying with a friend in town though, and I'm stoked to see her. I'm going to have to take my own car so I can drive to the conference. I'll catch you guys there." So I wouldn't come off as a weirdo. But I actually reserved a room at another hotel way across town, attended the bare minimum of the conference, and enjoyed as many coffee shops, art museums, downtown shopping trips, and nature trails as I could. Oh my gosh, excuse me. That sounds exactly like something I would do. I couldn't imagine. Okay, everybody else wants to hang out together all the time, go to bars, then go to these conferences together, go to dinners together, all this stuff, spend all this time with people that I don't know for real. I don't think so. That doesn't sound like much fun to me. And from experience, being an introvert group of extroverts and wanting to have solo time is looked at as being standoffish. So if she would have communicated, I'm assuming it was a woman. If she would have communicated that to her college friends at the time, it wouldn't have worked out. And they really weren't friends, college classmates. Because sometimes, to be honest, most college people haven't fully matured yet, right? At that age, they're still learning. They're growing into themselves, right? They're still learning who they are. And it's a lot of their first time away from home, from parental supervision. So they want to live it up. And they assume everybody wants to live it up like them. And if you don't, that could be a problem. But like I said, this tickled me so badly. I was like, this is definitely something that I would have done. I could totally see myself doing that. I couldn't even see myself doing that now. Although now I hope I would be more forthcoming. And most people that are within my space know how I am. So, but then again, kudos to her for putting herself first in that situation and understanding who she is as a person and being able to identify such and setting those boundaries by saying, oh, nope, can't do it. Not going to be able to do it. Anyway, we have come to the end of this episode of My Introvert Thoughts. But before we get out of here, I want to remind you there is podcast merch available. The link is in the description for this episode. Also, you can keep up with the podcast by following us at My Intro Thoughts on Instagram, on Threads, on X, which is formerly known as Twitter. You can follow us there. And if you have a question or something you would like to share with the podcast, again, you can email us at myintrothoughts@gmail.com. myintrothoughts@gmail.com. And let me say, I have truly enjoyed talking to you, and I hope to see you back here next episode. But until then, be blessed, be kind, and choose happy.